As you've walked in on this little sandy trail, we need to be mindful here. We are on top of the Pennsylvania Sandstone Formation. When the Ozarks were the size of the Rockies, they melted down. The sediments flowed to the east into shallow seas and laid down these beds of sandstone 200 feet below us here. So as that deteriorates, it's becoming this little sandy trail. That sets the stage for a rather sour acid soil for the forest here. And in this soil, with the deterioration of the leaves, you have the nutrients for the wildflowers. So in Savage Gulf, you have these little nutrient pockets which stuff grows out of. The best ginseng in the world comes out of that stuff, which has the original mineral elements in it. This area grows interesting characters as well. One of whom was Leonard Tate from over at Barshaba Springs, who wrote a poem about this sort of thing. And he said, all my life I've wanted to tell them that we are mountain people, and beneath the sandstone of our hills there's granite in our character. And so it makes it interesting. And below the sandstone is the limestone of the Mississippian period, which dissolves readily when the acid rain of carbonic acid gets in it and develops a system of springs and caves and trails. So as we get down the trail, now Jim, we're going that way. This is our leader. You lead, me follow. You know, most of the trees up here are the oak hickory on top. This tends to be dry, and they have adapted to this habitat. The oak hickory, of course, includes the white oaks and the chestnut oaks, and are among some of our most valuable veneer trees when they're allowed to grow to that size. And as we get under the bluff, then we'll start picking up the species that like it wetter and that require a better grade of soil, and that's the beeches, the maples, and many of the other hardwoods. We get a lot of short-leaf pine, Virginia pine, and even, of course, white pine will grow well on this type soil. The paper companies decided to grow a hybrid loblolly, which they found grows fast, but they didn't realize it was not resistant to drought. Oh. And the worst thing is when the tree got dry, it couldn't put out enough sap to fight off the pine beetles. So when 30,000 pine beetles at once hit one tree, they bored holes into it, carried the blue stain fungus, and the tree literally suffocated because it couldn't carry its nutrients up in the bark cambium layer. So the pine beetle peaks every 10 years. The pine trees peak every 20 years. Oops. Go Waters and many other companies found they had to sell off their pine plantations. It didn't work out. And they should have, because they were really butchering the native resistant diverse species for a cash crop. Trees are not a crop. Havelock Ellis said civilization began when the first tree was planted, and it will end when the last tree is cut. So this is what we have to have. No woods, no water, no wildlife, no fish, no flowers. We just gotta keep the balance. There's a pink bluet on Roan Mountain. They don't call them pinkets, but they're bluets. Yeah.
I have those in my yard.
White phase. You're getting into a different zone with more moisture from the stream, and it's supporting the mountain laurel. Mountain laurel can live on pretty dry spots as well. Don't ever make weenie sticks out of mountain laurel, they're toxic. Over here, of course, we have a wonderful display of moss, mostly like what they call pigeon wheat, and of course the Christmas ferns. And the Christmas ferns are one of our most common perennials. I mean, they come up year after year, and they're pretty hardy. And reindeer moss and lichen. These are some of God's first good ideas for plants, and they are hardy pioneers, each one making a little more moisture so the next one can survive and surpass it. And that's the nature's way. In each of these little zones evolves a little cadre of people who live there. The insect flora sets the insect fauna in motion, and so as they evolve, it changes.
Is that the a rhododendron or a laurel you have your hand on?
This is the mountain laurel.
The laurel.
Rhododendron has a longer leaf.
Yeah.
That's the Rose Bay rhododendron. And in some of the gorges, like North Chickamauga, you have the Catawba rhododendron with a more rounded leaf with the pink blossom, or rose colored. So we're lucky to have a lot of the heath people, the evergreen leaves like the hollies and rhododendrons and such. So you can hear the sound of mountain water making music, and on these large rocks, little crust of soil and blossoms like the anemones and chickweed and blackberry. Well protected, I would say. Jim has spotted the yellow root that's come out up there, and if you pull up the root and cut it, it's as bright yellow as yellow gets. And the local people chew it for an astringent for their gums.
Which one is that?
Up there on the falls, you can see
it has the pink
got
plumes
the
on
little
it.
pink blooms, and it loves to have its feet wet. Rough edges like this have been a great barrier and protection for some of our old forests, which some people call virgin forest, others original, others old growth, but they're the grandmother and grandfather trees. And something about a big tree that gives you a better perspective on life. You find little round pebbles of quartz. They've been obviously rounded by water, by being on a beach, on the edge of the sea. And then oftentimes you'll find ones like this with a pink color. That's a signature mineral of titanium, which comes from near Hot Springs, Arkansas. It's from where they have a diamond crater not far away. When the mountains were washed away, all of those pebbles accumulated here were pressed down, and then when Africa and America bumped into each other, this escarpment was uplifted. The Sequatchie Valley was folded like a great newspaper and cracked, and the Sequatchie River has eaten its way northwards to the Devil's Step Hollow Cave. And so the geology fascinated John Muir. And if you learn a little bit of geomorphology, you can read Mother Earth like a great novel, because it's an ever unfolding and wonderful story. Pull the tree back so you can see the blossom. It has a very complex little flower if you want to look closely at it. They're very successful on poor sites. They'll grow often right on a rock ledge. They often grow in association with the selenes or firecracker flowers, and they can take it wet or dry, but mostly find little pockets like this one. We found a foam flower here, Alice, if you want to look at it when you come down. It's on the left by the tree. What appears to be caves up there. That makes a great place for a campsite if it's a rainy night, and it's a great place for bobcat and occasionally for mountain lion. So those natural caves were inhabited by the Native Americans, and some of the arrowheads and potsherds and animal bones and such are found from time to time. Down at Peter Rock Cave, the university had an excavation down there about 30 years ago and got a nice collection out of it of some of the artifacts. They now have means by which stuff like that can be dated, and it's remarkable that we still have some of these sites that haven't been looted, so we can go back and find out more about the people. It turns out some of these sites were inhabited 8,000 to 10,000 years ago. And we've even found mastodon bones in Tennessee that were cut with flint knives by the Indians as they made soup out of the bone marrow. That was a big meal. We're seeing some terrible changes that are going to happen to the woods as we've known them for centuries.
And by wiping out, do you think entirely?
Probably not entirely, but the problem with hemlock is it's not like chestnut. In chestnuts, the soil fungus puts the parasite into remission, so that the roots are not affected. So the roots have enough energy to keep sending chestnut sprouts back. In the case of the hemlock adelgid, they eat the whole thing, and there's not enough energy left in the tree. It regrows its leaves once or twice, and then it's out again. Havelock Ellis said civilization began when the first tree was planted, and it will end when the last tree is cut. So this is what we have to have. No woods, no water, no wildlife, no fish, no flowers. We just gotta keep the balance.